Welcome back to Inherited Dawn, a One Piece podcast. We are breaking down the greatest story ever told, chapter by chapter.
And today, we're on chapter 241, Heaven's Judgment.
Heaven's Judgment. And Oda was not playing around with that title. We get our first real taste of the danger in Skypiea, and it is not what I expected. It's not a monster or a pirate. It's a bolt of lightning from a clear blue sky that just erases a man from existence.
The sheer casual power on display is terrifying, and we get a name attached to it, Enel.
It is an absolutely brutal introduction to the top dog of this island. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single step of this climb into heaven, or maybe something else entirely, make sure you're following the show. You don't want to get left behind on the blue sea for this one.
No, you don't. The ascent has just begun. Let's start the breakdown.
So we open back with the crew on Angel Beach. They're all eating, but the tension is still there because Luffy has that look in his eyes. He is completely fixated on Upper Yard, the forbidden Holy Land.
The place Konis just warned them is home to God, and for Luffy, forbidden is just another word for invitation. We've seen this time and time again. The more you tell him not to do something, the more inevitable it becomes that he will do it.
Exactly. Sanji and Usopp know it. They see it immediately. They're basically like, well, he's going. There's no stopping him. It's not even a question of if, it's a question of when. You can see the resignation on their faces. It's the look of two guys who have accepted that their captain is a force of nature.
It's the look of parents who have a particularly adventurous toddler. They're not even trying to reason with him anymore. They're just trying to manage the fallout. Usopp's expression is pure, here we go again.
And I love that Oda takes the time to show us this. It's not just stated, it's a whole little silent conversation between the crew members who know Luffy best. They're communicating with glances. It shows how tight this unit has become. They don't need to talk to know what's about to happen.
But for once, there's a more immediate priority. It's pointed out that they need to find Nami. They can't just charge into God's backyard without their navigator.
I love that from Zoro. It's that little moment of him being the unofficial vice captain. He knows how to point Luffy's chaotic energy in the right direction for a little while. He's not telling Luffy not to go to the Forbidden Island. He's just saying, not yet. Crew first.
It's the most effective way to handle Luffy. You don't put up a wall, you present a different path that leads to the same eventual goal. Zoro understands Luffy's core motivation is his friends. By framing the search for Nami as the first step of the adventure, he successfully channels that energy. It's a very subtle but important moment of leadership from him.
It really is. He's the anchor in these moments. The priority is the crew. Always. He's the one who will always bring it back to that.
And while this is happening, Pagaya, Konis's father, offers to take a look at the waiver. He mentions he's a dial boat technician, which is a detail I love.
It's perfect world building. Of course they have specialists for their unique technology. This isn't just magic. It's an entire system of engineering we're slowly getting to see. He's the Franky of the sky, a dial mechanic. I want to see his workshop, his tools. Does he have a big sign that says, Pagaya's Super Dial Repair?
I doubt he uses your specific branding, but the principle is the same. It grounds this fantastical world in a layer of believable reality. Societies develop experts for the things that are important to them. In the Blue Sea, it's shipwrights. Here, it's dial technicians.
It also immediately solves a plot problem. They have this strange vehicle they don't know how to use, and conveniently they found the one person who can help. It feels very natural. It's not just a lucky break. It's a logical outcome of interacting with the locals.
Right. So the plan is set. Find Nami, then probably definitely invade God's personal space. But for now, we cut away from them.
We cut to Nami, and the tone shifts completely.
It goes from a friendly, slightly tense meal on the beach to something straight out of a survival horror story. Nami's on the waiver, and she's reached what must be the shore of Upper Yard. It's all giant, twisted trees and thick, overgrown roots. It looks ancient and dangerous.
This doesn't look like the rest of Skypiea. Angel Island was all fluffy clouds and beautiful architecture. This is Earth, Real, solid, ancient Earth. It feels out of place up here in the sky, like a piece of the blue sea was ripped out and thrown 10,000 meters into the air, which, might be something to keep in mind.
The atmosphere is palpable. Oda is a master of this. The shading becomes heavier. The trees look menacing. You feel the isolation. Nami immediately senses that this is not a place she should be. Her danger sense is tingling. It's that instinct that has kept her alive for years.
She's the smartest one in the crew when it comes to knowing when to run, but just as she's about to turn back, she realizes someone is right behind her. That is a classic horror movie jump scare done perfectly in a manga panel.
And then all hell breaks loose. A guy comes sprinting out of the forest, screaming, looking absolutely desperate. He's being chased by another man and what looks like a giant fluffy dog.
The designs are just immediately off the wall. The pursuer is on stilts or something like them, bouncing along with these weird springy shoes. It's goofy, but also incredibly unsettling in the way he moves.
The movement is unnerving, and it's just chaos. Before the dog can get the guy, a third person swoops in out of nowhere, riding a massive bird, and kicks the dog away. The action is so fast and disorienting. You have no idea who is on whose side.
Right? Is the bird guy saving him? Are they all after him? And then another person shows up and stops the bird rider. So now we have a big standoff, or what looks like one, over this one terrified man. It's a free-for-all.
And Nami is just caught in the middle of it, hiding, watching this madness unfold. This is her worst nightmare. She's not a frontline fighter like Luffy or Zoro. She's a navigator and a strategist who has been thrown into a violent conflict between complete strangers in a hostile, unknown land.
And then it gets even crazier. The guy who was behind her the whole time, the fifth person in this whole mess, pulls out a massive bazooka. I mean, this thing is huge. It looks like something I'd build.
And he just fires it into the center of the four of them. No warning, no monologue, just a massive explosion.
The sheer destructive power of it is nuts. He completely levels that part of the forest, and it shows that whoever these people are, they are not messing around. This isn't some petty squabble. This is the baseline level of violence here. A giant explosion is just the opening move.
It also establishes a certain baseline of power here. A bazooka of that size is a significant weapon, and this man uses it without hesitation. He seems, for a moment, to be the most dangerous person in this scenario.
For a moment, yeah. The smoke clears and the original guy, the one who is being chased, is the only one left standing. He spots Nami. He's desperate, begging her to help him escape, offering her anything.
You can see the pure terror in his eyes. He knows he's a dead man if he stays here. There's a history here we're not privy to. He didn't just wander into the wrong place. He's a fugitive, and he knows exactly what his fate will be.
And just as he's pleading with Nami, it happens.
A pillar of light descends from the sky. It looks like a lightning bolt, yet it's so much more precise, so controlled. It strikes him with perfect, surgical precision.
Super. That is how you introduce a villain. No monologue, no grand entrance, just an effortless, instantaneous display of overwhelming, inescapable power. He was talking 1 second, mid-sentence, and the next he's just gone. A scorch mark on the ground, a puff of smoke. That's it.
And the sky was clear. This wasn't a random storm. This was an attack. This was judgment. The title of the chapter made manifest. This is heaven's judgment in its most literal form.
I mean, we've seen powerful devil fruits. Crocodile can turn into sand and dry you out. Ace can throw giant fireballs. But this feels different. This is on another level. The range, the speed, the finality of it. How do you even fight that? He didn't even have to be there.
You can't fight it. That's the entire point of this introduction. It's meant to establish a power that seems absolute and omniscient. It's not about strength or speed. It's about a fundamental rule of this world. If you break the law, you are erased. It's chilling.
The bazooka guy even looks up and says it. He wonders aloud if that was Enel. And that's our name. That's the name of God. And it is now tied to one of the most brutal and efficient takedowns we've seen in the entire series.
The implication is terrifying. There's a being here who can watch everything from anywhere and who can pass judgment from miles away with what appears to be the power of lightning itself. How do you even begin to fight that? You can't hide. You can't run.
You can't. And the bazooka guy, who just seconds ago seemed like the most dangerous person there with his giant cannon, immediately decides to retreat. He just says, "I'm leaving this island," and bails. Even he is scared of this Enel. That tells you everything you need to know about the power hierarchy on this island.
He's a shark who just realized he's swimming in an ocean with a kraken. He understands he is completely out of his league. His terrestrial power, his bazooka, is meaningless in the face of divine, celestial power.
And then Oda hits us with the twist. Just as you're processing the horror of the lightning strike, the pursuers from that chaotic chase, they get up from the explosion, brushing themselves off, and they're just talking, casually.
They weren't fighting each other at all. It was all an act, a performance, or perhaps a test for the man who was running. They're a team. They were working in concert the whole time.
And they look so cool. The bird rider, the guy with the weird bouncing shoes, the big guy with the staff, and a fourth one who looks like he's wearing a wrestling mask. These are God's priests. They weren't fazed by a giant bazooka blast at all. It was nothing to them.
That title, priests, is so important. It frames this entire power structure as a religious institution. They aren't just guards or warriors. They are agents of the divine. They carry out God's will. This elevates the conflict beyond a simple battle over territory. It becomes a battle of ideology, of freedom versus divine rule.
It's not just a king and his knights. It's a god and his clergy. That's a whole different ballgame. The way they talk about the guy who just got vaporized is so cold, too. They just call him a heathen. No remorse. This is just another day at the office for them, cleansing the Holy Land of unbelievers.
Their casual demeanor is perhaps the most frightening part. The explosion, the chase, the divine execution. To them, it was mundane. It was routine, which suggests this happens often.
And then one of them drops the real bombshell. He says that 7 illegal trespassers from the Blue Sea have entered their territory. The math clicks instantly. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Uso, Chopper, Robin, and Nami. 7.
And Nami is hiding in the bushes, hearing every single word. The look on her face, pure, undiluted terror. Oda draws her eyes wide, the sweat pouring. She realizes they're talking about her and her friends.
It's such a brilliant way to establish the stakes. The crew thinks they're on a fun sky adventure, looking for treasure in a city of gold. They have no idea that they've already been classified as criminals and marked for death by the most powerful force on the island. But Nami knows.
She carries that burden of knowledge now. It completely reframes her situation. She isn't just lost. She's being actively hunted by a god and his 4 chief enforcers. Every second she spends on Upper Yard is a second she could be erased from existence.
It's heavy. And while Nami is processing this horror, we cut back to the relative peace of Angel Beach. But it doesn't last long. That contrast is brutal. We go from Nami's life or death terror back to the crew just hanging out.
Because another group arrives, the official police force of Skypiea, the White Berets.
They look kind of goofy, to be honest. Big poofy hats, little wings. Their leader is Captain McKinley. They're here to investigate the illegal entry. Compared to the priests we just saw, these guys look like a joke.
And that contrast is intentional. It creates an interesting dynamic. We now have 2 separate antagonistic forces. There are the priests, who are the divine, absolute, and terrifying authority of Upper Yard, and then there are the White Berets, who seem to be the more conventional, civic authority for the rest of Skypiea.
It's like the difference between the Marines and the Shichibukai almost. One is the government, the other is a power that operates by its own rules, and the Straw Hats are about to be caught between both. One will try to arrest you, the other will just kill you.
A fascinating parallel. The White Berets represent the law of man, or the law of the Skypieans, while the priests represent the law of God. It begs the question of how these 2 systems interact. Does McKinley answer to Enel, or is there a separation between church and state, so to speak?
I'm betting there isn't much of one.
The White Berets immediately spot the Going Merry. A giant non-Skypiean ship is a pretty big giveaway. A wooden ship with a sheep figurehead tends to stand out on a beach made of clouds.
And who's there to greet them? Luffy, of course. He's on the beach with Pagaya, tinkering with the waver, completely oblivious to the danger Nami is in, or the fact that he's about to be arrested.
He's in his own little world, fascinated by the new technology. He just sees them and has that classic Luffy reaction. Huh? Who are those guys? Not a care in the world. He sees a bunch of guys in weird uniforms, and his first instinct isn't caution, it's just mild curiosity.
It's the perfect encapsulation of the crew's current state. Total ignorance. Luffy's carefree attitude is set against the backdrop of the extreme danger that we, the readers, and Nami now know exists.
And that's where the chapter ends, with Nami in mortal peril, knowing the crew is being hunted by a god, and Luffy about to have his first run-in with the local law enforcement. Oda is a master of setting up these multi-layered conflicts. There is no downtime for the Straw Hats. Not ever.
Every single member of the crew is now in some form of jeopardy, whether they know it or not. The adventure has officially begun, and it's already far more dangerous than any of them could have imagined.
What a chapter. The introduction of the priests, the first mention of Enel, and that absolutely bone-chilling lightning strike. The scale of Skypiea just expanded in a huge way. We thought the biggest problem was getting here. Turns out that was the easy part.
It did. The threats are now clear, even if their exact nature is still a mystery. We have a political threat in the White Berets and an existential, seemingly divine threat in Enel and his priests.
Man, I can't wait to see what these priests can do. We got a little tease, but I want to see them in a real fight. If you have a favorite design out of the 4 of them so far, let us know in the comments. The bird guy is definitely up there for me. You can't beat having a giant rideable bird as your partner.
I'm more interested in what their powers represent. Perhaps they administer some kind of ordeals or tests. The man was judged and found wanting. The priests seem to be the ones who administer the tests that lead to that judgment. But let's move on to predictions for Chapter 242.
All right, let's hear him. I'll go first. Prediction 1. Captain McKinley and the White Berets are going to try and formally place Luffy under arrest for illegal entry. But Luffy, being Luffy, is just going to be confused and probably try to befriend them. Pagaya is going to step in and try to de-escalate, explaining that they're just ignorant travelers.
A classic Luffy versus bureaucracy scenario. I can see that.
Prediction 2, we're going to stay with Nami, and she's going to make a break for it on the waiver. She knows she's been spotted, or at least is in the area. This will be our first real showcase of her using that vehicle under extreme pressure, and she'll use her navigator skills to evade the priests through the crazy environment of Upper Yard.
So we'll see her competence in the face of absolute terror.
Exactly. My third prediction, we will get a short check-in on the Going Merry. Chopper is still there, guarding the ship. I think he's going to have an encounter of his own, maybe with some of the strange sky creatures that sets up another subplot on the ship itself. It feels like Oda is scattering everyone for a reason.
Placing all the pieces on the board. Okay, my turn. My first prediction is that the confrontation with the White Berets will be less about a fight and more about an info dump. McKinley won't just arrest Luffy. He'll explain why illegal entry is such a severe crime here. It'll tie into their relationship with God and the history of Skypiea, giving us our first piece of lore from an official source.
Oh, I like that. Using the police to explain the rules of the world. Smart.
My second prediction, as Nami is escaping, we will learn the name of at least one of the 4 priests. He'll be the one leading the chase, and we'll get a hint about his specific fighting style or the ordeal he presides over. Maybe the bird rider, since he seems to be the scout.
Giving the threat a name and a face. Nice. What's your last one?
My final prediction connects back to Enel. I believe Conus and her father, Pagaya, will be the ones to explain who or what Enel is. Hearing McKinley's formal charges will prompt Pagaya to give Luffy a very serious, very quiet warning about the being that truly rules Skypiea, reinforcing the absolute terror we saw on Nami's face. The name will be spoken with fear.
Bro, that would be heavy. Getting the locals' perspective on what it's like to live under a guy who can smite you from the heavens at any moment. That sets the stage perfectly.
We'll see. The board is set.
And the game is on. That's it for this episode of Inherited Dawn.
We will see you next time.